All right, good morning. We're at January the 22nd, 2024. Our Bible lesson this morning comes from the New King James Version. It is John 7:31-32 and John 7:45 through 52. And I will read it. And many of the people believed in him and said, "When the Christ comes, will he do more signs than these which this man has done?" The Pharisees heard the crowd murmuring these things concerning him, and the Pharisees and the chief priests sent officers to take him. That is, to take Jesus. They sent these officers from the temple guard out there to arrest him. Now, continuing on, John 7:45 through 52. Then, this is after a while, they sent him out there to arrest Jesus, and the officers were out there listening to him and trying to arrest him, but they just couldn't seem to get it together. Then the officers came to the chief priests and Pharisees, who said to them, "Why have you not brought him?" The officers answered, "No man ever spoke like this man." Then the Pharisees answered them, "Are you also deceived? Have any of the rulers or the Pharisees believed in him? But this crowd that does not know the law is accursed." Nicodemus, he who came to Jesus by night, being one of them, said to them, "Does our law judge a man before it hears him and knows what he is doing?" And they answered and said to him, "Are you also from Galilee? Search and look, for no prophet has arisen out of Galilee." All right, I'll put this story in my own words. Jesus was in the temple. He was talking and preaching to the people. And the people were saying, "Man, this guy's something else. He's doing signs, he's doing miracles, he's talking like we never heard anybody talk. Could he be the Messiah?" As they were all excited about Jesus being in the temple. Now the Pharisees were also in the temple. They felt like that was their temple. They're the ones that should be preaching in there. And they heard the crowd saying these things, and they decided they were going to send their officers, their temple guard, to arrest him. So they sent them. So the officers went out there, and they got mesmerized by what Jesus was saying. They were dumbfounded, as they say, and found themselves ignoring the orders of their priests to arrest him, and were sitting there listening to him. And time passed, and they realized they hadn't done what they were supposed to do to arrest him. And they went back to the chief priests, and the priest said, "Hey, we sent you out there to arrest him. Why didn't you bring him?" And the officers said, "No man ever spoke like this man." In other words, we can't really give you a good reason that we didn't obey orders, but we just couldn't do it, man. This guy was something else. And the Pharisees then said, "Hey, you guys must be being deceived like these ignorant people out here. None of us has believed in him. None of us Pharisees and priests have believed in him. And this crowd out here, this crowd of ignorant people that don't know the law, these accursed people," they said. And this is when Nicodemus spoke up. Now, Nicodemus was one of the Pharisees or the priest. I'm not sure which he was. And he's the one that came to Jesus by night, if you remember the other story. And Jesus had told Nicodemus, you must be born again to enter the kingdom of heaven. And remember, Nicodemus said, how can you be born again? Do you enter back into your mother's womb? And Jesus explained to him, hey, you're not getting what I'm saying. That which is born of flesh is flesh. I'm talking about being born of the Spirit. So that was Nicodemus. And he spoke up now. And he said, asking his fellow Pharisees and priests, does our law judge a man before it hears him and knows what he is doing? In other words, you're fixing to try to arrest Jesus, and he hasn't had a hearing yet. You guys need to bring him in and question him. We have rules that we go by. You're just going to send the people out there, the guards out there, to arrest him. So when Nicodemus told them that, they said, the priests answered and said, are you also from Galilee? Well, Jesus was from Galilee, or he had lived there anyway. Search and look, for no prophet has arisen out of Galilee. So they're saying Jesus can't be a prophet, because when we look at the Torah, the Old Testament, there's no mention of a prophet coming from Galilee. And that was their proof that Jesus couldn't be the Messiah or couldn't be a prophet. And of course, that doesn't make a lot of sense, because Jesus could have been born somewhere else, which he was. He was born in Nazareth. He was born in Bethlehem, the house of bread. That's what Bethlehem means. And Jesus was the bread of life, the bread that came down from heaven. So the Pharisees and the priests were not making a coherent argument. They just were assuming that because Jesus was living in Galilee at the time, that's where he arose from, or where he was born. Okay, this part about the no man ever spoke this way, the priest said, man, we couldn't arrest him because no man ever talked like that. We've never heard another human being speaking such amazing things. Now, Jesus was known as the Word, you know. Jesus was the Word. And by his words is essentially how we're healed. By hearing his words. His words are the bread that comes down from heaven. So I picked this particular verse because that's why I originally started to believe that Jesus was real, and that he was a real person, and that he later I discovered or believed after I was instructed by people that knew what they were talking about, that he was actually divine. And when I read the words of Jesus, I realized I wasn't looking at a normal man, because I know about Shakespeare and other great men that wrote things, and it definitely occurred to me, this is not like anybody else. This man speaks in a very different way. And that's what the guards told the priest. Hey, we didn't arrest him because we never heard a man speak like this. So I would like to encourage you out there that have not committed to Jesus fully to read the New Testament and read the words of Jesus and consider those words slowly and deeply, and think about this. Have you ever heard of anybody that talked like this? Now, you're going to have to read it. It's going to take you, a couple of weeks, to slowly and carefully read the New Testament. I say start with the New Testament because if you start with the Old Testament, you're going to get lost. Old Testament is advanced reading because there are many prophecies. So when you read the New Testament and read Jesus' words, you're getting right to the good stuff, the heart of the matter, because Jesus is the Old Testament. And he tells you, Jesus explains to you what the Old Testament means. And that's what he came to earth to do. I'm explaining to you what this is all about, what you must do to be born again, and what you must do to be transformed from a fleshly being to a spirit being. That is, to be born again. Now, I can't do any better than just to tell you what Jesus said and what he did. All right, that's the lesson for today. Let's see how far. I'm on to up to about 16 minutes. Let's see. No, 11 minutes. Okay, that is very good. Would you say the Lord's Prayer with me, and we'll end this? This is the prayer that Jesus taught his disciples to say. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen.